Hello everybody, welcome to StraightA, Dawson here, back with another video of Madden 24, but with a twist, Fantasy Football Edition. Welcome to the new franchise version of my channel. Basically, I'm going to be playing some Madden 24, but with fantasy football elements, and we're going to just kind of roll into things as they go and explain things along the way. But before we get started, please leave a like on the video, and comment down suggestions below, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Let's get right into the video, guys. As you see on screen, I have a draft board here. It's a 2-minute per pick, 12-team, 20-round draft, and I'm going to be drafting a team in which I'm going to see how well I do in fantasy football in Madden 24. Yes, I'm going to be taking the in real life fantasy football game and translating it into Madden to see how well we can do in the Madden universe. I'm on Sleeper and I'm on the pre-Madden 2000, so going into 2023 draft. It kind of has that draft logic where it's not taking the Puka, Nakua, and all of them into account. This is like as if we're going into the season brand new. I'm on Sleeper. I got some certain settings put on in which I'm going to show you, of course, Madden 24 draft, snake draft, half PPR, because that's the correct way to play, I believe. 2-minute per pick, CPU auto pick just when time runs out. All players on the board. Third round reversals off, roster settings. So this will be best ball. The best way I can replicate best ball with Sleeper for the CPUs to actually take it all into account is to basically say you gotta draft 2 QBs, roughly 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers, because we're gonna be doing a 3 wide receiver starter, 2 tight ends, 2 flex positions, 2 kickers, and 2 defenses. So it's going to be a 20 team roster with 10 starters, 1 QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, a defense, and a kicker. And so these are all the things I need to be looking out for, and this is all I need to draft for this upcoming thing. I'm going to randomize my draft selection here on screen right now. Doesn't matter what I get, randomized teams. Boom, I'm in the number 10 slot, no matter what. And we'll get into more what all that will mean in the future, but right now we have to start our draft and select our team. I hopefully turned down the sound enough to make sure it's not too loud for you guys. But I'm going to be thinking in Madden terms right now. Madden terms completely, and that's what we're going to do. Right now, kind of the obvious pick for me is, oh man, it feels like Saquon Barkley is one of the best picks. I think running backs are going to be seriously important in Madden versus wide receivers. Because tight ends, they're fine. Wide receivers, you can kind of pick up a number 1 wide receiver for any team. Or even number 2s kind of do good for the slot positions, but running backs, they're only the starters are only ones that really get any real reps. So Saquon is a starter. Injuries are not really a big factor with this, so that's kind of a lucky thing for me. I could get Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs playbook, so all the playbooks are in position here, does super well. Now, if I'm looking down the board right now, let's look at other QBs. I mean, Josh Allen's a few picks down that you could go for. You could also think of some running back, like the QB running potential. The running backs on the board, Tony Pollard's the only exciting one, or the only slightly exciting one. I probably still need to go running back heavy. I see Cooper Kupp, I see Devontae Adams, I see Amon St. Brown, and I'm thinking all those guys can do well, but like I don't know how well they can really do, especially maybe Cooper Kupp's the best option here, but Puka's really good in the game now, so I think he takes a lot of reps away. In the end, I think I'm gonna go Amon St. Brown. I just instinctively feel like a QB is easier to replace than a running back or wide receiver, and I'm thinking I gotta really utilize the running backs that are here. So we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 starting running backs gone. I just need to make sure I get up at least 3 starting running backs to be in a good position. Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know whether he is starter. I didn't write a review for this or anything. I just kind of threw myself into this. I'm thinking I take Breece Hall right now, and maybe either if Aaron Jones is still there, Aaron Jones, or maybe I go DK. DK does get some decent reps in there. I'm going to go Breece Hall. I feel like he's a good pick here, but DK would have been tempting. Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones now are the very tempting offers. Because wide receivers, Keenan Allen, I don't know how well he does in there, but again, I think 3 starting running backs is going to be the way to go. I think I'm going to go Kenneth Walker, though. He is the starter for Seattle. I now feel good about my running backs. I don't have to go too much into my running back position now. That is set in stone. If I'm looking at tight ends on the board, like any tight end kind of does all right. I just got to think of how the schemes are in the game. Justin Fields, Josh Allen are all good pickups. Lamar Jackson would also be a very good pickup. Yes, he's right there. So I don't know who else would be really good. Don't think Trevor Lawrence has a good style. Don't think the Jacksonville playbook plays very well. But maybe Darren Waller with the Giants. I don't think. I mean, they don't sim the best. Kyle Pitts with Atlanta. He's a very good overall. I think I'm going to go Kyle Pitts here just because he's extremely good overall in a tight end built team. So I think I'm going to go him. Now, wide receiver wise, I'm thinking Brandon Ayuk. I know Debo's probably rated a little bit higher than him, but Brandon Ayuk is still very good. So I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk here, kind of go down the board, showcase this. And, you know, what's going to be exciting about this is that all these other teams are also going to be transferred into Madden. We're going to make a whole schedule for them. You're going to see some very big spectacle type things. But right now, we just got to get the draft done. We have to make sure we have the best team absolutely possible. And I was just looking at Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman just got off the board. That's unfortunate. But Jordan Addison is wide receiver too. So I think he's a good pickup. Deshaun Watson in the game's not horrible. But looking at other QBs, I think there's Anthony Richardson QB I can pick up later on. That's going to serve me very well. I think Jordan Addison is going to be the best pickup for me right now. If I'm looking up ahead, there's not anything that's really enticing me at any position except maybe, do I just go ahead and pick up Anthony Richardson? Anthony Richardson's right there, basically. Oh, no, he's at 108. Okay, 108. But, I mean, they're not looking at tight ends anymore. Brandon Cooks really isn't something that excites me. I can't really scroll very well on this thing, it looks like. Quentin Johnston in the game could do fine. Juju maybe is fine. I think I'm just going to go pick up my quarterback, and that's Anthony Richardson. I don't know whether the game schemes around him is the problem, but he's still a younger QB in the game, and I can probably pick up another decent QB near the end of the draft, so I'm not exactly worried about all that good stuff. I am going to probably focus. Well, so, you know, we're at this point where I'm not really tied to anything. So Samaje Perine still probably the backup in Denver, so probably a good pickup there. Cortland Sutton, though, probably is the number one in Denver. So I'm going to go them. And if Samaje Perine's there, then I'll pick up Samaje Perine, but he just went away. So that's unfortunate. Elijah Mitchell's the backup in San Francisco. So I feel like I'm just going to go ahead and pick up that and just make sure I get at least a decent backup running back. Just a tied. I don't know the bye weeks or anything on top of my head. So looking at all this, I haven't even looked at other teams right now, whether they did good or not. So it'll be interesting. There are some good pickups we can pick up later on, though. Raheem Mostert would have been good. Tank Bigsby is a backup in, what's it called? In whatchamacallit. Oh, but we can pick up, just saw him. Nico Collins would be a good one. Rashee Rice would be a good one. I'm not really looking at kickers, all that. They all play very similarly. Defenses do kind of matter compared to Madden. But man, this does not scroll well. How can I make this bigger? I feel like I don't like how bad this scrolls with my mouse. My mouse is not very good. I think I'm going to go Rashee. Rashee Rice is a good wide receiver in the game, or at least a young wide receiver in the game. If I'm looking at other ones, Romeo Doubs is fine. Sam Laporta is a number one tight end and would not be a horrible flex option. Some tight ends in the flex in Madden would be good, especially with the Detroit scheme, or Detroit playbook. Do I go him? Do I go Jacoby Myers? Man, this is not. Tyler Boyd's also not a horrible option. I think I just pick up and solidify my second tight end. I'll be honest with you. I know that's not the best move in the world, but I feel like for Madden, it feels like a decent move. Quarterback, I'm not worried about for the backup right now. I'm not really worried about the kickers at all. Defenses, I'll look a little bit ahead on, just because I think good defenses matter, especially with the Madden schemes, but kickers really don't to me. So it's kind of think about this. Brock Purdy's right there. Nico Collins, right. It's kind of hard to turn down Nico Collins right now because I think he's gotten upgrades in the game. Brock Purdy also would have been an awesome good choice because he's very good in the game with a good team around him. Otherwise, I can pick up Bryce Young later. I don't think he'll matter too much right this moment. Man, defenses don't come into effect for a while, though, so I'm not even going to look at that really right now. Devin Singletary in Houston, I believe, is the starter. So that'd be kind of a steal, it feels like. Again, I'm not worried about kicker. Then again, I probably should pick up a kicker at least decently soon. Zay Jones also wouldn't be a bad pickup. I don't know. It's kind of a hard choice. I think I'm going to go Zay Jones. But then again, he's like third in the depth chart there. So maybe Devin Singletary. Yeah, we'll go Devin Singletary. Just because I feel like of those two, I feel like he'll get more reps than anything. I'll probably pick up a kicker just to pick up something. Maybe a team that scores a lot of points in Madden. Tank Dell, actually, coming back around, or Marvin Mims, because I believe he's the third wide receiver. Then again, I don't know if he is, actually. But Tank Dell just went right before me. Damn. All right, Michael Gallup, though, isn't the worst. Rondale Moore, I know, is good in Arizona, at least. I'm going to pick up Rondale Moore, and then we're going to probably pick up a kicker. Los Angeles Chargers put up some decent points, so we're probably just going to go ahead and make sure we solidify the kicker. I can pick up, like, a different QB down the line. I'm not too worried about that. Then again, I mean, how many kickers have already been taken off the board? Like, how many kickers have already been, like, solidified? So, like, there's a lot of purple on the board. Everybody's pretty much picked up their kicker. Fine, I'll pick, because I don't know how many other good kickers there are. I mean, there's a few decent kickers. Then again, I don't know when any. Oh, this actually isn't good. I didn't think about this. How many of these kickers actually start? Oh, that's not good. All right, we're gonna pick up Cameron Dicker just because I'm now worried about which QBs actually start, which kickers actually start. So that's not good. Hopefully Kyler Murray makes it back around. I'll pick him up as my backup. But I'm trying to think. I need one more QB and one more kicker, two more defenses. So kicker, QB, defense. I gotta pick up Kyler Murray, I think, and then I'll pick up another kicker. Oh man, what defenses went at some one point? Because I know Tennessee and Washington's not going this early. Whoa, that's weird. That's really fucking strange. Okay, defenses must be messed up a little bit here. But I'm gonna go the. Then again, I can wait on Jake Moody. I can wait on Jake Moody and just go and pick up a defense. San Francisco defense probably the best in the game, right? It's either them or the Cowboys, but I think Cowboys would have already been picked up by now because they wouldn't be this far down. Yeah, let's go 49ers. Pick up them. Then we'll go and pick up Jake Moody or Matt Gay, whichever one's there. We'll see what defenses are left. I'll pick up the scraps basically for. I got one of the better defenses. I don't know why they pick up Commanders or Titans. That's kind of crazy. Let's hope I get Jake Moody. Let's hope I get Jake Moody. Let's hope I get. No, fuck, damn it. All right, I don't know which one of these kickers actually start. I don't know how this many kickers are actually gone. So, fuck me, I guess. Man, this is actually sucky. This is very okay. No, there's some starting kickers down here. It's just a little bit weirder. I don't know why certain kickers are like gone. Brandon Aubrey. All right, just we'll remember Brandon Aubrey. He's still there. But let's pick up the Eagles defense. Eagles defense does well in the game, I think, right? Yeah, let's go Eagles defense. I feel like it's a decent defense to pick up as a second, and then we'll go Brandon Aubrey. Yeah. Brandon Aubrey. Brandon Aubrey. Okay, we're not. Oh, that's defense. It's probably need to actually put kickers on. Brandon Aubrey. Boom, bada bing. Nope, don't just fucking draft him. What the fuck you doing? There you go. Boom. Drafted. I have my team now drafted and good to go. We're going to take a look at the team. But I think I built a decent team here. I'm not going to lie to you. I think this is a good Madden type team. We'll convert the league real quick. That way we have all the saved data. You're going to see this all in an Excel sheet with all the different teams here in a second. And we'll review how I did. Before we just review my team and see how well I did, look at it on screen. You'll see all the draft orders, everything in the Excel sheet, just like I promised. And as you see, there's like all these different names of these teams. Don't worry about those. We'll be introducing those teams in a minute. But I just kind of want to explain the sleeper draft, mess up a couple things with not drafting enough defenses, drafting some irrelevant kickers. So I kind of fixed a couple of those things in more logical ordering. So around 18, 19, and 20 should be a little bit different, but don't worry about that for the most part. It's not that big of a deal. Just for some longevity's sake, who knows. But you'll see on screen all the color coordination, the team names, stuff like that, which we'll review in a second, as well as divisions down here in the bottom left, which we'll go over as well. But just know I did the divisions based on like team 1, 2, and 3 were in divisions 1, 2, and 3. So basically this one right here was in the same division as this one right here, and then also this one right here, and then this one right here. So these divisions were made up basically in the order of the draft, and then 2, 5, whatever, so on and so forth. The teams are basically based on the draft order, just for longevity's sake instead of just randomizing them. So there you go. And of course, I'm in the process of making all the schedules going down all the way down, so it's not completely finished, but that's what it is right now. And we're about to go ahead and introduce you to the teams. I'm really excited about this part. Of course, as much as I love my team and introducing my team to y'all and you're seeing how well I do, I'm also going to be facing off against 11 other teams throughout the season for hopefully all 18 weeks, because this is all 18 week season, because of the fact that none of the starters in Madden, all the starters play throughout every season, even the game doesn't matter. So don't even worry about that, because the championships will be 2 weeks, so the playoffs will be weeks 15 and 16, and then 17 and 18, with 4 teams making the playoffs, with 3 division winners and 1 wild card player. So this is going to be very, very fun. But let me introduce you to my competition and introduce you to my team, of course, too. So the first one, with the first turn order of this one, so basically pick one, or round 1, pick 1. Kittle Big Town. Also, you're probably going to hate all of these names because they're based on the previous season. They're just fun little names I found throughout the internet. So they're going to be good, they're going to be bad, they're going to be funny. I like these, so go screw yourselves. And I made all the images and generations with Dolly from ChatGPT, just because I don't have time to make 12 different logos. So they actually did pretty good though. So Kittle Big Town is the first team up, and they drafted a decent team: Justin Herbert, Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, David Njoku, Alvin Kamara, Jake Elliott, and Colts. One of the better draft teams, I'm not gonna lie, especially for Madden. Their backups are not great, but they're not also bad either. So big credit to Kittle Big Town. But next up is Smile for the Kamara. And I love this one just because the smiles of the cameras. It's really, really flashy. But this one's honestly not to pick at either. I mean, it's got just a solid group of people: Justin Fields, Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard, Terry McLaurin, George Pickens, Adam Thielen, Dallas Goedert, Travis Etienne, Graham Gano, and Seahawks defense. Overall, good depth too. If you look at Brian Robinson, Romeo Doubs, Zay Jones, I haven't looked at all these guys, how well they're going to actually stack up in Madden, but it's still not a bad team at all. Then we got Among Us. So Amon Ra, Among Us. You get it. Beside the point. It gets the Among Us right away. And again, Jalen Hurts, Isaiah Pacheco. I'm going to probably stop reading these, but you can read on screen. Jamal Williams, like the notable, its running back room is not very good, but it's because of a stacked wide receiver room with Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, DeAndre Hopkins, and even some good wide receivers like Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and Tyler Lockett. Pretty damn good wide receivers, if I don't say so myself. And of course, Picket Line is up next with Josh Allen, Joe Mixon being probably a couple first picks. Mike Evans also up there. Travis Kelce, the number 1 pick for them. Packers defense and some decent depth, but just more like a solid overall middle team here. Then we got How I Metcalf Your Mother. This is actually my favorite logo, one of my least favorite names, but beside the point. Also solid running back squad, honestly. Jonathan Taylor, Alexander Madison, and Rashad White. Very impressive, especially Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, and Marquise Brown being your receivers, and Mark Andrews. This might be the best team in the whole league. Now, granted, the depth gets a little rough because I don't know what half these guys are, but apparently they are in those positions they are. So, awesome. Next one, I also love this logo because I did not think ChatGPT was ever capable of making this. But Nakua Matata, you're going to see some like misspells, like there's an extra A at the end. Oh well, damn cool logo though. I love that because they got Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, George Kittle, Ezekiel Elliott. This is actually probably one of the worst like overall starter squads. Lamar Jackson kind of carries here, but Tyreek Hill also is good. George Kittle's good. It just feels like a very underwhelming group of people compared to a lot of these other teams. Then we got mixing it up, of course, with Jared Goff, Bijan Robinson, Damian Pierce, Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Pat Freiermuth, Javonte Williams. Again, another more above average squad. I feel like just a very good team. Then this is a hooked on a Thielen. Hooked on a Thielen, of course, hooked on a Thielen, blah, blah, you get it. Yeah, you get it. With Tua, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Mark Cooper, Cole Kmet, Rashad Penny. I know Dalvin Cook's actually really good in the game for some reason, so go figure for it. And actually some really good depth here with Michael Pittman, Jordan Love, Raheem Mostert, Marvin Mims even, Kareem Hunt. Like, this is a damn good squad too, so I'd be kind of scared to face off against them. Baskin Dobbins is another one here. Don't mind it's a little bit wonky from copy and pasting Excel, but whatever. Also solid squad: Patrick Mahomes, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, AJ Brown, Chris Godwin, Jerry Jeudy. Very solid squad overall. Then you got, of course, my team, which we'll review right here, right now. The Bryce is Right. If you didn't know, my middle name is Bryce, so I thought this would be a really cool team for me to associate with. The Bryce is Right. It was also the league. The Bryce is Right was one of my names in one of the leagues I played in this year. Of course, my QB is Anthony Richardson and Kyler Murray. Very solid squad. I think one of them will always pop off in a given week. Saquon and Breece Hall, I think, are very solid running backs to kind of keep up. Kenneth Walker is a flex position with my running backs. I think is very, very doable. Mon St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, and Jordan Addison, very, very solid receivers. And Mon St. Brown being the highlight there, but Brandon Ayuk, nothing to sneeze at. And Jordan Addison, even as number 2, is not very bad. Kyle Pitts, being a superstar X Factor in the game, is going to help me a ton. Cameron Dicker, it's whatever. 49ers defense, awesome. And you got my depth, which I'm a little bit worried about because Elijah Mitchell and Devin Singletary aren't necessarily, I don't think they're starters in the game, but we'll see how they do. Cortland Sutton, Rashee Rice, and Nico Collins should help kind of fill in that flex position, though, when a couple of my running backs are just not doing anything at all. Sam Laporta, a very solid tight end backup, and possibly a flex if he does really well. Rondale Moore, a very good flex option down below, too. I was the only team, I believe, with a flex option bench. As that was a receiver, so cool. And Brandon Aubrey and Eagles, just a little bit extra insurance, so for the best ball stuff you got. Then we got Kareem Hunt's. Man, I keep on forgetting these names on top of my head right here. Crispy Kareems, Crispy Kareems, which is really funny. Trevor Lawrence, Jameer Gibbs, Samaje Perine, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, Darren Waller. Probably the worst squad, I'd say, pretty easily. Just doesn't have anybody except for like CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs, receiver based, and not really much depth, to be honest with you. And then finally, Addison Square Garden, of course, with actually a really solid squad with Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Joe Burrow, DK, Quentin Johnston. The game's not bad. Odell Beckham, same thing with him. Then kind of gets a little bit underwhelming with depth, but James Conner, Russell Wilson, not bad pickups overall. So it's just overall solid squad there. Of course, we do have divisions for each of these teams, and here are the divisions. Kittle Big Town, Picket Line, Mixing It Up, and The Price is Right will be a part of the Extra Point Pirates. Next up, the Field Goal Fiends make up How I Met Your Mother, Hooked on a Thielen, Crispy Kareems, and then Smile for the Kamara. And then, of course, Safety Sallies go in Nakua Matata, Munus, Baskin Dobbins, and Addison Square Garden. So here's our divisions and how they're made up of, and there's a quick overview of all the teams, and I think we need to find out how we're exactly going to be scored. So if you're curious of exactly how we're going to be keeping score, I'm just going by half PPR rules using fantasy data and their quick kind of point breakdown, basically passing yards. I mean, I'm just not going to review all of this, but notable things are passing touchdowns 4 points, interceptions -2, rushing yards. Well, all this will be fraction based too, so they don't have to get the 10 yards incrementals. They can actually get 11.9 points, 11.7 points based on rushing yards. Receptions, of course, will be 0.5 per reception. Again, half PPR scoring, and everything else on this will be the same here. Team defenses will be one I kind of have to use, so just know that points allowed will be scored this way. 2-point conversion, returns, safeties, fumble recoveries, stuff like that will be there. I will not be using individual defensive players, and the kicking will just be simple: 1 point for extra points, and field goals made will be 3 points within 49 yards, and field goal made 50 plus will be 5 points. Just kind of keep that in mind as things go forward. That's how I'll be scoring, and I'm going to be manually putting them all from Madden into the Excel sheet to showcase the scorings, and we're going to try to slow roll it. I think the series, I want to kind of make it something a little bit fun and kind of as we go. And lucky for y'all, it isn't just a draft and explaining things. We're going to be doing 2 whole weeks, so let's get right into week 1 and see how some of these teams actually end up doing. Oh, but first, I guess we do have to know the matchups, don't we? Clarification, we're going into week 1 right now. I made this schedule from footballguys.com. I made it week 1 through week 14 for the regular season, meaning we play 14 regular season games. 2 games will be with each of our divisional opponents. It means we'll have 6 divisional games, and the rest we play outside our division 1 time. So we play every team at least once, but our division opponents twice. And the first 3 weeks are division games completely, while the rest of the weeks are kind of just mixed up with the division games kind of included in between. So that's how we kind of are doing it. The tiebreaker will be points scored, so points for, and it will be best ball style. So we have replacements for all of our players. If bye weeks happen where a position's empty, I'll just take the best available free agent for each of the teams, and just go from there. We're not going to make it a big deal. Most of them should line up just fine, but just wanted to clarify that for any confusions or anything like that. Otherwise, again, it's best ball, so we have 2 QBs, of course, but there's only 1 QB spot. The best QB scoring that week will be the automatic starter, and points for will only be scored by the starters of each week. So again, there's a lot to throw at you, but we're going to get right to the fun stuff of the actual matchups for week 1. Of course, I have the whole schedule pretty much made right in front of me, but we're just going to go ahead and review it week by week, and I'll give you all the kind of breakdowns of scores, and near the end of the schedule, we'll kind of see the big increments that happen, or the games that will happen with big time implementations of close scorings, of close divisions, stuff like that. But week 1, again, division matchups: How I Met Your Mother and Crispy Kareems. I always forget that name just because I think the logo is so freaking funny. So we'll see how those 2 match up. But we also have Smile for the Kamara and Hooked on a Thielen also playing up in divisional matchup action. Then we got Baskin Dobbins and Amon Us. Probably should word it Amon Us instead of Among Us, but whatever. Either way works. Then we got Mixing It Up with Picket Line, Addison Square Garden against Nakua Matata, and The Price is Right facing off against Kittle Big Town. And again, more divisional matchups here today, and we're going to kind of break it down. We're going to see how this first video feels in terms of showing you how I'm doing the scoring. It'll be a little complicated, but we're going to work on it, Of course, I'm going to show you all the settings I have on, as well as kind of how I'm going to be doing the process real quick. Just as a quick little overview. That way we can get all into the fun stuff in the upcoming few videos. But I'll be playing on all Madden. I will not be playing. I will not be involved in any way. I will just purely be simulating as a little host here. I'll be controlling virtually every team. That way I can kind of go game by game rather than just kind of looking at the stats afterwards. I kind of want to go game by game, make it a little exciting for myself too. So I'm going to be on simulation, quarter length 10 minutes, auxiliary clock to 20 seconds, play cooldowns in case those actually matter. Everything will be on simple auto. Again, I will not be coaching. All the CPUs should not be fired though, I don't think. And granted, I guess in one season it really doesn't matter. Pre-existing injuries are off, so any injuries that were possibly in this game for franchise will not be happening. Injuries are on, practice injuries are on, so all that will take into account. Buys, of course, will be on and all that good stuff, but here's some other settings in case you're all curious of it all. So boom, bada, bing. And I'm going to give you a showcase of an example game of how I will be kind of computing the matchups. So here I am controlling the Lions. So Lions play the Chiefs the very first game of the season. It's Thursday night. That way it's kind of chronologically, there we go, correct here. So play season game. Again, not going to be part of it at all. Granted, I have to select the Lions, but I'm just going to do simulation based. And as the game goes on, I'll kind of just be watching the ball, probably sim through most of them very quickly, and I'll go through the ending stats and compute them to my Excel sheet. So boom, bada, bing, the matchups and how the actual season unfolds doesn't really matter that much considering there's 18 games, but you can also just follow along as we see different alternatives of this whole season. So Chiefs just beat the Lions in the opening matchup rather than the Lions beating the Chiefs 21-20. Said it was 31-21, so go figure. Chiefs win, lol. But I'll then be going to player stats. And then obviously Jared Goff is a drafted player as well as Patrick Mahomes. So then I'll be calculating, okay, they had 267 passing yards times 0.25 or 0.02, sorry, something 0.04, my bad, 0.04 times 267 yards. That will get me a certain number. 2 touchdowns will be 2 times 4 to make 8, and that will be added total points. Then I'll go into rushing for the running back. So Patrick Mahomes, for example, rushed 12 yards, while Jared Goff rushed 19. So then it's 19 times 0.1, and Patrick Mahomes 12 times 0.1 as well. For running backs, just in general, of course, the touchdown 6 times 2 for the 12 points total right here, as well as taking into the yards. Then I do receiving, so I do their yards, so yards times 0.1, 70.1. 70 times 0.1, and then their touchdowns times 6, etc., etc. Then I'll be doing all the defensive calculations too, if there's any touchdowns from defensive plays or how many scores they got scored on, stuff like that, forced fumbles, etc., etc. And then kicking, obviously I'll go by extra points, but also how many regular field goals they made throughout the time, and go from there. So it's kind of simple to the point. You're going to trust me on a lot of these games because I'm not going to show you all 180 plus games or whatever that's going to go on through the season, 200 games, whatever. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's going to be a little bit of a trust in me, but I'll show some notable games, especially if I see some scores getting close between two teams that really rely on another team or another player to play. So that's how it's going to be done. So let's kind of get into some more of the calculations. I learned a couple things from going from week 1 is that it takes forever for this game to load and simulate all 17 games and then write down 220 different numbers for the total points. So that's a little tidbit there. So who knows how the editing of this is going to go. But either way, a quick recap of it all. If we look at the stats and rewards, luckily I can just make this really easy on myself and just look at the plain old stats and rewards of everybody currently in the NFL. But looking right now, the most impressive by a mile is Dak Prescott. 3 touchdowns, 424-yard game, 0 interceptions. You'll see how that's reflected, but Josh Allen did pretty good. Jared Goff. Got a bunch of mid-tier kind of quarterbacks at this point with the mid-200s, low 200s, then high 100s here. Rushing attack wise, Derrick Henry was by far one of the most effective on the ground, but some other not too big slouches here actually showed out decently well, especially in the receiving game. But one receiver to rule them all, CeeDee Lamb, by a long shot. No surprise with Dak Prescott doing as good as he did. It was largely because of CeeDee Lamb doing really, really well as well. Chris Godwin did find the end zone twice though, so that's pretty good, not too slouch indeed. And I'm not really going to show the kicking and all that too often, but there you go for some of the initial stats of it all. Defenses, a bunch of them kind of varied around a little bit, but that's kind of the initial week 1. We'll show you the in-season rewards too. Obviously, Dak Prescott and Josh Allen are probably the 2 most effective players on each of their respective conferences. And so far, so good with this whole league. In terms of wins and losses, I'll show you kind of the league standings right now. That way you can kind of keep an idea of what teams are doing well, what teams are not. But we also have to showcase the injury reports of the current teams. And there's some big ones here actually to show out. So, well, one big one at least. Commanders do have Antonio Gibson out for 7 weeks. So, unfortunately, Antonio Gibson will not be able to be in action, of course. Then we have the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey has a torn MCL complete tear, and he's out for 32 weeks. That means Christian McCaffrey, a first-round pick, is out in week 1 immediately off the bat. Did not get any points at all. So unfortunately, we will have a Christian McCaffrey-less league this year in Madden, which is just unfortunate. It's just all due to the sim. And I believe there's one other player that was kind of important, but I can't really remember on the top of my head. Oh yeah, Alvin Kamara's out for a week, but that's not too big of a deal. In other news, there's a couple players that are in free agency that are technically drafted. They're going to stay drafted because they could be signed at any moment, so it's not going to be a big deal there. Only time I'll ever make exceptions for people getting the benefit of the doubt from a free agent is if the bye weeks don't line up, but injuries and free agent signings are just unfortunate for the person doing so. We do have Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, some notable ones there. I don't think there's any receivers from what I saw that aren't drafted. Everybody else who was drafted in the draft is on a current roster. Same with tight ends, same with quarterbacks and all that good stuff. So a little clarification there. But Juju Smith-Schuster was signed recently to a team I can't remember on top of my head, but we're about to find out right now with the league transactions. Juju was signed to the Falcons for a nice little contract, adding a little bit of value to his actual draft spot there. Now, let's take a look exactly how all these players did and then kind of do a recap of all the matchups this week. So I told you I was going to show you the calculations, and basically, again, what I'm doing here is in this little spot right here, you have a How I Met Your Mother and Krispy Kremes, and putting up all of the different players and all their different scores. I then take the best of each position, basically the perfect lineup they have, calculate the scores, and I put them in the middle right here. I'm kind of hiding them right now because I'm going to reveal those a little bit later, but this is kind of how I do it, and again, I do it based off the scores I said previously. And again, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to show the players, actually, because of how slow this takes, and it takes so much time just to input these little scores here, but it's just how it goes sometimes. So we'll see how much I go. Maybe I'll focus on my season more in following videos, but at least getting the ground running. We're going to do week 1 and week 2 pretty fast and showcase a little bit of everything really quickly. So all that said, week 1 is in the books, and all those little quick recaps of everything. I'm also going to show you how each of the matchups actually ended up lining up. So, using the first matchup as a good example, How I Met Your Mother and Krispy Kremes, their scores ended up like this. So, as you will see on the board, you'll have all these numbers up here, a breakdown in the middle, the little red or green numbers down here below, and then blue or red names here to highlight. To break this down for you is that the fourth right here for How I Met Your Mother indicates their current points for. So what that means is the total amount of points they've scored in their starting lineups. And it's going to be calculated continuously throughout the whole season. That just so I can show you how well that team's doing throughout the whole season. I'm also going to give you the average number per each game. So like 129.7 divided by 1 equals 129.7, etc., etc. So you'll see that's the place they're in total points for, the points, the average per game. Easy, easy. The breakdown is essentially how many teams they would have beaten. So if they got first place in points for in 1 week, that means they would have beat all other 11 teams, meaning their record would be 11-0. So Krispy Kremes has second place this week, and so he would have beaten all but one other team, making his total breakdown 10 wins, 1 loss. So that will also be updated throughout the whole season. Down here shows their record after the following week. So this game means that How I Met Your Mother did lose this week 0-1. Or sorry, they're now 0 wins, 1 loss. In their division, they are 0 wins, 1 loss. And this week, they were 4th at 129.7 points for. So this kind of shows you a kind of quick breakdown of it all, as well as players that did well and players that did not as well for them this week. So, breaking down this one, How I Met Your Mother versus Krispy Kremes. 2 very high-scoring teams here. Krispy Kremes just ran away with the dough with almost 10 points above How I Met Your Mother. Both teams doing very well, but How I Met Your Mother unfortunately had a bad week against a really good team, is how it kind of played out to be. Both divisional matchups. All this first 3 weeks are going to be divisional matchups. A change I did make was that the first 3 weeks and the last 3 weeks of the regular season will be divisional matchups. Everything in between will be non-divisional. I decided to make that statement so that way it's kind of just a focus on the regular season against other teams, and then the end off the season it comes down to divisional teams. Thought that would be really cool to end off the season. Then if you're looking at the players that did really well, Dak Prescott, of course, was really a big help from How I Met Your Mother. Zamir White helped bring up a team that had a struggling Rashad White here. So Zamir White did get the nod there. I believe Josh Jacobs did get injured into the game, so Zamir White came into play. Or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly where Zamir White played, but I think he's a backup who played for a starter. But then, of course, you have Krispy Kremes, who had CeeDee Lamb, who I believe was the highest scoring person, period, in the whole week. So CeeDee Lamb did really, really good. Trevor Lawrence also did outstanding, while Darren Waller, the tight end position, really just did not do well for him. Krispy Kremes did struggle in that end, but they don't really need it when everybody else is scoring pretty decently well. So Krispy Kremes is off to a really, really good start here. And don't mind these little picture sizes. I'm fixing them down the line. Just did not feel like doing it now. We have Smile for the Kamara versus Hooked on a Thielen. And of course, both of them, Hooked on Thielen was the worst scoring by far this week. Has a very underwhelming performance by some decent players here. Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, and Mark Cooper all scored sub 5 points. Not very good for them. They also had, again, 95 points, which only 2 teams scored below 100 points. So not very good start for Hooked on Thielen. Smile for the Corner had a more favorable matchup. Middle of the packet, 127.5 points overall. Nobody really stood out. They just kind of did overall okay. Tony Pollard, Daniel Jones, and St. Jones didn't really do very well, though, who probably could be expected to. So Smile for the Corner is kind of sitting decently pretty, but could be doing better for the future here. Then we have Baskin Dobbins versus Ominous. Baskin Dobbins by far was the team to beat this week. 149 points, outstanding performances. Chris Godwin, Jaylen Warren being two of the more notable ones. Chris Godwin again finding the end zone twice, but everybody else did really well across the board, so nothing to complain about there. Among Us, of course, if you notice, 123.8 points is not too far behind the 127.5, so not really too bad considering it's 6th versus 8th. Sorry, kind of spoiled a little bit there, but 6th versus 8th there. But it's still middle of the pack. It's doing whatever. Isaiah Pacheco and Gus Edwards had really great performances, but outside of that, they had like everybody else perform pretty badly or very close to where they were supposed to. Jamar Chase, T.J. Hawkinson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Devonta Smith all performed pretty poorly. So Gus Edwards and Isaiah Pacheco really held up the score there for Among Us, and just ended up not being enough to actually squeeze out victory. Then again, they're kind of fighting an uphill battle with Baskin Dobbins doing so well. Then we have Mixing It Up versus Picket Line. Again, a pretty close matchup when you look at the actual placements, but the scores were actually 14 points difference, 13.5 technically, or whatever. Picket Line had a pretty good advantage here. Josh Allen, Gerald Everett, and Brandon Cooks having decent weeks. Travis Kelce actually was not the starting tight end this week, so that's probably a little curious there. Mike Evans also did not perform up to his standard, but not too bad when Mixing It Up really didn't have any highlights except for Javonte Williams doing really well. And Dameon Pierce was a surprise to me, so I decided to put him on the list as well. So it was kind of just a whatever. Mixing It Up just does not have a very well-rounded team, while Picket Line was able to kind of edge it out against Mixing It Up here. Then we have Addison Square Garden against Nakua Matata. I love that name so much. Actually, fairly close matchup when you look at 9th versus 3rd, because the 2nd and 1st really ran away with the points for. But Nakua Matata definitely took it away here. Bryce Young, really outstanding performance. David Montgomery, really, really good. Even though there's technically rumors in the game that the Lions are planning on trading him, Christian Kirk very well as well, while George Kittle and tight end position in general was not very good for Nakua Matata. While Addison Square Garden did have a valiant effort with Michael Gallup and Derrick Henry having outstanding performances, but no one else really did amazing on the team, so they fell short at a pretty measly 123.1 points. Then, of course, my game of the week, Bryce is Right versus Kittle Big Town. A very good matchup for Bryce is Right at 129 points. Versus 99.6. Of course, Kittle Big Town was the 2nd lowest scoring team, so it was a more favorable matchup. They had the Christian McCaffrey injury, which did not help them. Keenan Allen didn't do well. Najee Harris didn't really do well anything. Chris Olave was the only notable player doing much for that team. While Bryce is Right honestly didn't have anybody that did outstanding. They just kind of had everybody do all right, I guess. But Kyler Murray, Breece Hall, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jordan Addison, none of them really held up to the standards I expected from them. Either way, a win's a win, and the Bryce is Right is sitting pretty at the 7-4 breakdown record. So I like middle of the pack. It's all right. And of course, the Eliminator. What the Eliminator is, a little fun, little side mode here, is that I'm eliminating the lowest scoring team of the week from the Eliminator thing. It's just a little bonus, little extra little trivia here to see who can last the longest, staying not the lowest scoring of every week. It doesn't matter for much of anything except for the prize of the Eliminator winner. We're also probably going to give out some other prizes near the end of the season, not just the championship. But Hooked on a Thielen was the lowest scoring this week. That was still in the Eliminator, of course. So Hooked on a Thielen is out of here, leaving 11 teams left for the Eliminator. But of course, guys, it is now time for Week 2. Here's a little showcase for the Week 1 matchups and the results and everything. That way you can kind of get a good idea of what exactly happened. If you see played, that means basically I just simulated the game itself and did it game by game. Eventually, I said this is taking way too long because it took me like 3 hours to do all the games you see played. So eventually I just skipped the whole week and went back and found all the players and calculated their scores. But that's the kind of current layout of the score so far, going now into Week 2 officially. Well, Week 2 was certainly something for this fantasy league. Not much has changed in terms of a lot of the other things we can go over. Free agency really didn't change other than Graham Gano, the kicker, got signed to the Patriots, and no other big injuries to report that were very long and very new. So there you go, as a quick recap there. Here's some of the news for this time. Nothing kind of too notable right now for this week. Just game ones. In terms of standings, there you go. On screens all everybody's records at this point, as well as we're going to look at the schedule real quick of last week. That way you guys got to get an idea of who won, who lost. I didn't play any of these. I just kind of skipped through so I could see how fast I could actually tally these all up for. But with some pretty not close games. A couple good close games, but just a little bit interesting there on that front of things. But that's not all what this is about. This is about the fantasy football aspect of it all. And of course, with that, there's no week to week where I can easily show you stats like from week to week. So unfortunately, I'm going to just have to show you how things have changed a little bit. We'll go ahead and show you the in-season awards for that. Kyler Murray and Aaron Rodgers were easily the two of the best people this week in the quarterback position, so that's very notable here. But in terms of player stats, we'll kind of go ahead and just showcase everybody the best we can. That way you can see Dak Prescott still is on his really good train. Trevor Lawrence had a pretty promising game, while Josh Allen continues a great performance. In the rushing game, Derrick Henry continues to be really dominant. Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon both had very outstanding games, while Dameon Pierce had more of a breakout game as well. Ramondre keeps up the full head of steam, but more so just in terms of consistent play. Receiving-wise, CeeDee Lamb had a very lackluster game. Nico Collins, those rising up the boards from one of the best receivers possible, while Chris Godwin is just keeping up a good pace right now. Stephon Diggs, a little bit more unfortunate, but not too bad this week. Amari Cooper, outstanding, hell of a game, as you'll see here in a little bit. And just overall, some other good plays here from the receivers in general. We'll kind of get into the matchups here, but we'll kind of just cover all the grounds, make sure everything's covered for the week in terms of the standings and all the transactions and all that. So as I kind of noted earlier, Graham Gano is the only notable pickup. No notable trades have happened just yet. And like I said, on screen now, the standings and top performers thus far. But let's get to how these teams actually ended up performing. So this is all your recaps from week 2 and all the results here to showcase. Right here, the first matchup we had was Mixing It Up versus The Rice is Right. All the stats on screen are after the week 2, so basically it's a little bit updated for all your liking. But just some notable things here. Going to this matchup, Rice is Right was pretty favored, and they actually ended up winning pretty nice, or at least we ended up winning. So now we move up to 2-0 with only 3 other teams, or 4 other teams at this point, 3 other teams I believe. And we're still 2-0 in division, while 139.8 points really helps rocket us above the average here. And now we are second leading in terms of points for in the league right now, and our breakdown is second best as well at 16-6, which is pretty damn good if I don't say so myself. Nico Collins, Kyler Murray, and Rondale Moore, outstanding weeks and performances thus far, while Saquon Barkley, Brandon Ayuk, and Sam Laporta just continue to not do too well in this league. But when we're getting carried by everybody else, especially our receivers, I can't really complain too much. Well, Mixing It Up has struggled a little bit at the get-go, being a little bit more in the mid-range of teams so far. Cooper Kupp and Javonte Williams had good weeks, but T. Higgins and Pat Freiermuth weren't able to keep up the average here. So they kind of just are around the middle of the pack right now. We'll see how they perform in coming weeks, but they really need to get a win if they want to kill that 0-2 average right now. Meanwhile, Picket Line and Kittle Big Town, also kind of a more mid-range teams, while Kittle Big Town has actually really fallen off to pretty much one of the worst teams. Picket Line is the 6th most points for, while Kittle Big Town is now 12th. And if we look at Mixing It Up, they were 8th, if you want to know there. And the average is right there if you want to see per game what they're doing. Picket Line, though, I think has had some favorable matchups, so they are still 2-0 and 118.7 points this week versus 97.3 from Kittle Big Town. Very bad performances all around from Kittle Big Town. Justin Herbert, Chris Olave, Derek Carr, David Njoku. No one really got many more points than 10, and even then that was kind of supposed to be expected from most of them, so they really didn't have anybody do well. While Picket Line at least had a couple good performers. Joe Mixon, Deshaun Watson, Miles Sanders, all picking up most of the slack of the rest of the team, while Drake London, probably one of the more lackluster performers from Picket Line's team thus far. Kittle Big Town now is one of the worst teams in the league at the current moment, at 2-20 breakdown, meaning they've only beaten 2 teams in a given week. Then we have How I Met Your Mother versus Smile for the Kamara. Very, very even matchup here, more on the lackluster side of the league, with Smile for the Kamara also having some very favorable matchups thus far in their division, 2-0. With 104.5 points against 99.7 against How I Met Your Mother. So very close matchup, one of the closest this week. Tony Pollard is the only player that did semi-well for Smile for the Kamara, while Travis Etienne and Dallas Goedert just really didn't pick up any slack. Even with Dak Prescott having a really great week, How I Met Your Mother just really couldn't pull anything together. Alexander Madison and Darnell Mooney. Everybody else on the team is just not really performing to the standards that they would expect from there. So anyway, they're very similar in terms of placement and breakdown, so no big surprise this matchup was pretty close. Of course, Crispy Kareem's and Hooked on a Thielen also had a matchup which was supposed to be one-sided pretty much in Krispy Kreme's favor going into this, because Hooked on a Thielen did tremendously bad last week, but they did the exact opposite this week and had the most points scored in this league thus far in one given week at 166.4 points. Much thanks to Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman, and Jake Ferguson all scoring above 20 points, and most of the other players at least scoring in the 15 range. Cole Kmet was the only person I could even justify putting on this list, and even then, he's a backup tight end. Well, I guess not backup, he was the first drafted, but you know what I mean. So, Hooked on a Thielen went from the worst team last week to the best team this week, showing that this team might have a lot of explosiveness to carry them throughout the season. Of course, they're 1-1 right now, taking Krispy Kreme's down from the 1-0 they had last week. And again, the points for rocks them up to 4th. Hooked on a Thielen went from last week to 4th now, and Krispy Kreme's was around the 2nd range, or 2nd or 4th range, can't remember exactly, down to now the 7th, which still puts them in a decent contendership. They didn't have anybody that performed outrageously good, but they definitely didn't have anybody they didn't have anybody really to perform outrageously bad, other than CeeDee Lamb and Darren Waller. CeeDee Lamb, though, picked up a lot of slack last week, so maybe a little bit of forgiveness. But Darren Waller, fat 0. But they really didn't have anybody perform really, really well to rocket them anywhere. Just kind of a lackluster performance, but it was all just expected from their players pretty much. So, very similar performances thus far from both these teams, but it's still early into the season, so we'll see how they kind of turn out to be. Baskin-Robbins and Addison Square Garden. Addison Square Garden pulling up the upset here against the favored matchup in Baskin-Robbins. Baskin-Robbins still holds the first place for points for, but this week they just couldn't fall. They fell a little flat to the second place of the points for this week from Addison Square Garden, with Derrick Henry, James Conner, and DK Metcalf all doing super well for them, which now puts them in 3rd place for points for, right behind the Bryce's Right and Baskin-Robbins. But again, Baskin-Robbins was not without great performance. They were in 4th place this week for points for, 128.8 points, but just was not enough. Aaron Rodgers again had a great week. Chris Godwin had a great week. Ramondre Stevenson was the closest one to a bad performance, so I'll put him on here. But their breakdown's still very favorable for them, and possibly really good momentum going forward for the rest of this team. Finally, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Nakua Matata. We have the biggest fall off in history right now from Nakua Matata, who had 83 points this week, and it was just by far the least amount that anybody has scored. Christian Kirk was the only person that really scored anything worthwhile, while Tyreek Hill had 1.5 points, tremendously low for him, and David Montgomery, who had a great week last week, is now at 0.5 points. So pretty damn bad. Nakua Matata does fall from 1-0 to 1-1, while Ominous was really looking forward to a favorable matchup this week to up their record to 1-1 finally. They were 5th place in points for this week, which pushed them in 5th place for total points for. Jamar Chase and Isaiah Pachenko were really good performers this week for him, while Devonta Smith and TJ Hawkinson were a little bit more below the average, but still nothing too bad. Both their breakdowns are still in favorable positions, but Nakua Matata is now in 11th place for points for in total weeks so far. So we'll see how that kind of shapes out for them in the future. Meanwhile, moving on to the Eliminator, of course, Nakua Matata did score the least amount of points this week, meaning they are eliminated from the Eliminator so far. Now, that will put us into week 3. All of the results and everything we have done so far has now said and done. With that said, I'm going to show you on screen now all of the different results and how I did everything here. That way you can see the total points calculated for everybody. That way you can showcase that I'm not trying to cheat or rig this game. There you go. Here's everything on screen. I'll even show you week 1 because I think I failed to properly do so last time. But honestly, it's very, very interesting thus far. First 2 weeks show the momentum from all these teams, and we do have one more divisional week next week until we get into the regular season of the other matchups going on. So we'll see how much can change throughout the season. Still anybody's ball game. A lot of teams are 0-2, a lot of teams are 1-1, a couple teams are 2-0, you know, all that good stuff. So there's still a lot of improvement, a lot of disimprovement for a lot of these teams, and we'll see how injuries and everything shape up for the rest of these players, and who knows who's going to shape up to be some of the best performers this week, as well as the best performers in terms of game managers. Thank you all for watching this first episode. If you like it, please leave a like down below. Comment any suggestions for this type of video going forward. I'm kind of just going into this, seeing what I can do. Maybe we'll make other videos for this in the future. But right now, see you guys later. StraightA Dawson, out.